All right, so you know those questions on a test where you have A, B, and C answers, and one of them is always the most outrageously untrue, and you're realistically only deciding between two of them? Well, if you pose the question of how many players were there at YCS Sacramento, and one of the answers was 900, for example, you would have probably written off that answer as one of those outlandish ones. Right? Well, the reality of things is that only around 900 players gathered for YCS Sacramento. And I think we have to talk about that because that is a massive drop from what we have been used to, or y'all have been used to, because God knows we don't have events in Europe. But yeah, let's talk about it. Of course, like the video if you enjoy it and share your thoughts. I would love to know what you think. I would say there's a couple factors, and of course, one of them is the format and everything we've been talking about lately. And it kinda does feel good, although it doesn't, knowing that there are actual facts you can point to people who say that, players aren't quitting, it's just a period, it's whatever, the game has always been this way. I totally get some of these arguments, but there were only 900 people at the YCS. Now, we do have to take into consideration that Pokemon Worlds are happening this weekend, so a lot of players also went there because their worlds are actually open to the public. So yay, for Pokemon, that's great. But yeah, what's more so the issue, I would say, is the format, the cost of the format, the unenjoyableness of the fact that you're playing in an event and there might be a random ban list dropping in like round 2 or something, like it has happened before. We're in a weird time period. We're kind of in limbo right now. We're waiting for a ban list to happen. It might go into effect before Worlds, and then things are going to change on that spectrum as well. Might be going into effect later for all of us. I don't know. There's a lot that could happen, and this format, as much as the commentators really tried their best to hype up every single summon of a Fiendsmith Engraver or a Moon of the Closed Sky, it's not really it, And honestly, what I've gathered from this event is the fact that if you're playing going second take control cards right now, that's actually not bad because all of us are playing the same engine. It's not even that enjoyable to watch at this point. And of course I'm watching, I'm doing these reports and I also do care, but it's really not that enjoyable. And another thing I want to talk about, and I swear we are going to jump to the top cut representation and the rest, but I kind of got a rant for a bit. So again, chime in with your thoughts, but another thing I want to quickly address is the actual stream. And I get that there are different people and teams and different production, you could say, that's responsible for European streams versus NA streams and the non-existent streams for everywhere else in the world almost. But the differences are so glaring. It's like, why do we have an actual good-looking stream and everything you see on the NA stream is pretty much a blotchy, blurry, just blob of mess? And again, I feel like I'm being mean, but it's just, you don't gotta do things differently. If your game broke, don't fix it kind of mentality should be applied to the streams and the way they're looking. At least in my opinion. They are trying, they're putting different feature matches on there, so we're not bored, that's amazing. There's different quick questions with players, I also enjoyed that, it's fine. I do feel like the commentary could be a little better. It's just my personal opinion though, not trying to be mean or anything, God knows I don't. I appreciate every single person that's trying to genuinely goes out of their way to try and make this stream more enjoyable. I just personally didn't really care for the commentary that much. But it is how it is. Now, I do want to jump into Top Cut representation and talking about the actual decks and the winner and all of that. Of course, props to the person doing well at this event. It is still a YCS, and 900 people is still not a small amount of people, in a vacuum. It's just that we're used to different things. But still, props to the winner, 100%. So the winning deck ended up being Fiendsmith Snake Eye. So let's talk about all of these decks together, because the decks that managed to go all the way to top 4 are the most represented, the most powerful, the most obvious ones in the meta, that being both Fiendsmith versions and also Tenpai Dragon. And then we're also going to take a look at the actual breakdown of top 32, 16, and so on. And of course, we're going to talk about some interesting decks as well. So to quickly go over the top decks of the meta, it's obvious. If you play a Fiendsmith engine right now, your deck is automatically going to go a couple tiers higher. Now, I personally would love to see Rescue Ace do well, but that is a wish. It is just a wish. So if you want to play an actual consistent and strong deck, of course you're going to be picking up the Snake Eye version of the deck. It is incredibly flexible. You can end on so many different boards, and I love that you're able to adapt. That's something that I actually genuinely like about this deck. And I also like watching gameplay of two good players piloting these types of decks actually is cool when they both get to play and they're trying to play around interruption that the other person might have, or if you actually, like we saw in one of the feature matches when one of the players chose Nibiru off of a Pot of Prosperity, meaning that your opponent has to know that Nibiru is coming and they're gonna have to play around it and try to beat it. It becomes a little more interesting. But if we take all of that away and just think about, you know, a deck that's powerful and it's running Fiendsmith, it's probably not that healthy for the game altogether. And the Yubel version is also really, really, really strong, and it's putting up boards that are so scary. And there's a lot of things you're able to do as the Yubel player, and I think it takes a whole lot of skill to adapt on the spot and choose what you're going to go for. And as for Tempai Dragon, I don't know, it's like, it's not just a shifter deck. You still gotta be good, but I would say it's the most annoying out of all three, and just, I don't think it's okay for the meta either, but it is here to kind of balance things out with the existence of shifter and of course the insane going second ability. So let's talk about the breakdown, because I want to mention some other decks as well. If we take a look at top 32 and top 16 also looked very similar. There is an insane amount of Fiendsmith decks, but what I wanted to mention is Runic Stun, Memento, and also Whitewoods Runic. Mainly Whitewoods Runic is something that I was actually really impressed by, and I think it's such a cool deck that it's just sad that it's existing in a format where it's not going to be able to shine, at least until a ban list, which we also got to notice is going to be, I guess, right after this event. This was the last with the current ban list, so that's a relief, but we still don't really know much more info than that. And of course, Runic Stun, it's a necessary evil, but hopefully some of these floodgates get addressed on the ban list. And as for Memento, also one of these decks that could be much more, I guess, appreciated, explored, utilized, developed if we didn't have some of the top decks of the meta. Because the player that actually played this deck, I think it was Clifton, something like that, he said that pretty much it's a rogue deck, and I think he put it really well in that if you're a really skilled player, like he obviously is, you're going to do well because the matchups are nice, but it's not like you got your work cut out for you, is what I want to say when it comes to Memento, at least in my opinion. And yeah, top 16 looked very, very similar, and we also addressed all the other top decks. So I think that's it for our top cut representation. But I do want to talk about another top cut because, of course, I cannot do this video without appreciating Edison as well. So let's talk about this for a quick second. So the top 8 players piloted Hero Frogs, Black Wings, Vayu Turbo, Zombie, and also Dream Frogs. And Dream Frogs ended up winning the entire thing. It's really cool. Like, it's one of those decks that kind of just popped up out of nowhere and people like it and they're doing well with it. So that's nice. There's 3 Black Wings in top 8 and not one of them made it to top 3. So that's also kind of nice, actually. It's Black Wing. Like, Whirlwind is just not fair. What's really cool to see is Zombie 100%, because it's one of those decks that can find themselves in a weird situation sometimes and lose too easily. So it's cool to see, but I'm really eager to see which version it actually is. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about some cards that were widely used across the board and why they are good in this particular format. If you're not already using them, you definitely should be, at least for the time being, until a ban list drops. So one of the cards we saw quite a lot was Purulia. Now, however you feel about the Mulcharmi cards, the fact remains that people are playing them. You gotta be careful that your opponent is probably going to try and use it against you. And you can also try and incorporate it into your strategy. it's not bad. You do get to draw quite a lot of cards, but it really depends on the matchup if you're actually going to be able to utilize that card advantage to your advantage, pretty much. Next up, we have Ghost Ogre. It is insanely good against Tempai and also some Yubel cards. Like, Yubel is just, it's kind of gone off the rails. It is an insane deck. Some of the boards he puts up are amazing. Sometimes it could have a difficulty of just getting going, and it also plays quite a lot of non-engine. So what could happen is what actually ended up happening in top 32, where both players playing the Fiendsmith something deck bricked on quite a lot of non-engine. It can happen, but in general, the Yubel deck is really, really good and strong, and it can overpower you quite easily. So Ghost Ogre is kind of nice. There's also DD Crow. Some people even use it in their main deck, or you can play Bestios if you want, of course, for more specific matchups. I already talked about take control cards, which I think are really, really decent. Another of the going second cards is Dark Ruler, which I've seen it used quite a lot. Like, you genuinely can rely on this card quite a bit, I would say, but you do have to keep in mind that a lot of decks have layered interruption, and most importantly, they have a whole lot of follow-up. Another card is Angel Statue, which has been popularized in some decks, so this is not too much of a surprise, but kind of the MVP, not really. It's just, it's Skill Drain. It's Skill Drain. I have to mention it. Hopefully it's getting banned, because this is just, it's kind of insane. Like, Skill Drain was just everywhere. Day one, literally all I saw was Skill Drain every single time almost. So yeah, however you feel about it, about Floodgates, stun cards, whatever, you know, it's still kind of a horrible card for the game, at least in my opinion. I don't want to get into the entire discussion right now, but feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, of course. So with all of that being said, that's gonna wrap up my report for today. Even though this particular event was a little different, it feels a little stale right now. We're all waiting for a ban list. Like I said before, I still love doing these reports. It just brings me so much joy to be able to bring you information immediately when the event concludes. So if you're still here watching till the end, I appreciate you. If you just tune in just because, I appreciate you as well. Make sure you like the video. Please share your thoughts in the comments. It really helps the channel, helps push the video. So please let me know what you think, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!